Jared Gidel is ready again to analyze the markets, what happened last week, and where we are headed. Right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, we didn't have any big news this week regarding the corn and soybean markets, but the weather, we had plenty of things going on, right, about the weather.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, it really kind of started us out with a bang here after the weekend when the forecast really zeroed in here for the current weekend going into what the U.S. celebrates as Labor Day weekend, last kind of big summertime vacation period here in the U.S. And so that got things off to a kind of a roaring start. The weekly exports shipments were so-so. So we kind of have the lackadaisical kind of reaction there on Tuesday. From there, because of that, the midweek scenario here, we did have a slight decline in ethanol. We still stayed above a million average barrels a day, which we haven't done in a while here in the month of August, and that so. But the markets this week just seem to be very cautious. I think there was a lot of our investing public and speculators and things like that were basically staying on the sidelines here ahead of the long weekend. The fact that we're going to get a USDA report after the holidays here on the 12th. There just seemed to be a lack of market participants in this week's activity, and despite the fact that we are going to be pretty warm here in the mid to high 90s here in the Eastern Corn Belt, and that all the way through Monday and maybe even to Tuesday at this point. Yeah, there is some logic to not getting too wild about late season heat, but the one twist of this thing is the last time we had the heat here, less than 10 days ago, and that we really didn't get any rain out of it. And I think that's another factor here. There was a graphic floating around out here about the last 2 weeks of August and significant dryness, even in northern Illinois and all the way through most of Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, all into out in the plain states and that. And I think that's as a factor. That's going to put some less fill in some of these corn plants, and also have an impact on the soybeans. But it's not unless you're the concept is you need to be 95 straight through, then it wasn't that. So, and even now this is finally heating up here on this on the weekend of and that here in the Eastern Corn Belt, and it's going to be here 3-4 days, and they're talking about moderating by the end of next week again. Right now there is some showers out there, but if it's like last time, it seemed like it retreated, and there was some rain in different spots, but it really wasn't very good in the northern half of the Midwest. And I think that's still a very important factor here. I guess we'll find that out when the USDA is there. Now, unfortunately, I'm a little cautious that the USDA, at this time of year, they're just getting geared up. They normally have in the past sometimes did some of this early selections, getting their plots figured out, going out there and getting their plant counts and ear counts and maybe some basic ideas about soybean seed development, and that's all happening in over the last week or so, or 10 days, and that so it's going to all happen in this particular month. So there won't be a lot of actual counts on yields and ideas about what potentially might be the yield until October. So that's another feature in there that makes this thing less than optimistic, I guess, about the USDA being able to catch any particular problem areas here on involving reduced ear length or reduced populations out there on these crops. But it's an interesting world from the standpoint that there is at least some caution here about the potential yields for the month of September. We'll just have to move along, I guess, in that regard.
Now, I want to hear you looking forward about soybeans because we'll be harvesting in the United States, but in a couple of weeks, Brazil will have a lot of beans on the ground.
Yes, they're been itching to get down there and get some things planted. It's interesting scenario on the El Nino's impact here on South America. So far, it hasn't really helped our friends in Argentina much. Things are still looking pretty tough on their wheat that's coming out of dormancy and things like that. On the other side of the coin, the Mato Grosso, Goiás, and the northern provinces and that out there turns up that sometimes the weather isn't as positive for the Brazilian beans planted in that area, which is interesting. We most of the time the impact in South America is generally positive. It's definitely for Argentina, and that's what the Argentinians could definitely use that. They haven't had a couple of years of tough go here at this point, but right now there's not as much talk of 4 and 5% increases here in Argentina, partly because I think that when you go back and think about the harvesting prices that came about, the lack of storage that came about, and the fact that they had a very good crop, but then turned around, they couldn't get it marketed. They didn't have it sold well. So all of a sudden prices on a basis level really were, they got impacted pretty significantly there. So, but at the same time, the prospects, at least at this point on new crop South American soybeans is important. I think that will be quite important as to how the Mato Grosso and Goiás and those areas up there get a chance to plant. Now, right now, things are still in the dry season, and it'd be kind of interesting the fact that the producers down there want to get in the planting soon, but at the same time, they definitely need moisture to get that done, and so that could be an interesting impact there of U.S. yields maybe not being as strong because of this dryness. Actually, it was interesting that the last 2 weeks of August was the one that really had some very dry conditions here in the U.S. And right now, at least, if this rain after this heat doesn't really develop, we can continue that again, and that'd be a factor, maybe giving us a little bit of a pop in these U.S. soybeans. But everybody's going to basically kind of see what kind of yields are starting to come out of the U.S. and how fast South America can get out there and plant some new crop for 2024. And soybeans, because of the fact that their U.S. plantings were down, and at this point, at least, there doesn't seem to be as many people optimistic about a lot of big jumps in the double crop beans after wheat this year, and that so it turns up that we're a lot closer to getting things very tight in beans than we are in corn. That's the biggest problem. Corn doesn't have even if with this 5.5 million more acres, it's tough to even if we took down U.S. soybean yields down from 175, and there's been some 172s kind of banding around from U.S. From Pro Farmer, and now the Michael Cordner, things like that. And but unfortunately, the U.S. carryover stock, and that's maybe part of the other reason this market has been somewhat dull and not responding to the heat, is the fact that even if we went to 1.8 billion carryover stock, that's still substantially above the 1.3 and a half, 1.4 billion bushels that currently in the carryover going into 2023-24.
Now, regarding wheat, there are plenty of things going on, and one of those things is that India will start importing wheat.
Yes, things are. The Indian situation has really been an interesting one, to say the least. They first cut this off last year, and then there was some thought they might try to get things opened up again. But the monsoonal situation, or the crop that we had in wheat, and then actually this year's coming, the monsoon that happened after their harvest of wheat, definitely has been significantly down. That's going to impact some other grains over there too, including oil seeds and soybeans. But in general, lots of talk about them potentially importing some wheat. Also, Australia. El Nino at this point has always been a significant impact on the southern hemisphere, and particularly Argentina, and excuse me, on Australia, Southeast Asia, Indonesia, and it seems like this time around, it's also impacting India, and all three of those areas are kind of under stress, and I think that could be an interesting factor here, providing some kind of background support to corn. Is seasonally here. If this thing continues, we could have finally a little bit of basing and a potential recovery here in U.S. wheat prices, and that right now, interestingly enough, in the midst of the Black Sea conflict out there, both Russia and India and the Ukraine have both kind of reported that their crops turned out to be better than you'd expect, considering the other things going on over there. The biggest thing right now is trying to get the supplies out of that region. The Ukrainians keep trying to come up with an alternative Black Sea corridor, utilizing opportunities through the Danube River in Romania, and the Russians at this point trying to be optimistic they've got wheat to sell. But I know that the world is not going to be first looking to buy Russian wheat outside of their Mideast and Mediterranean type purchases that's been going on. And that, so it's going to be quite a story going forward. And the interesting twist of it here in the U.S., things have improved in the southern plains, but they're still not in the best of shape out there. And that, particularly much of Kansas is still in the drought area. Oklahoma's probably of the three particular major states of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, is maybe in the best of shape on some moisture that for starting the season out. Texas, they have a long potential season. They could easily start. They used to plant a lot in early September down there, but I don't think that's going to be the case. They're going to be more at mid to late October, and that to see what kind of plantings go on there. The wheat market, considering the fact that we've got a lot of parts of the world that are still in concern and that, and even the U.S. is not on the best of all shapes. There's still people talking about maybe even increase in the U.S. Wheat seedings. I was really surprised when somebody brought that up, that could be happening. But interestingly enough, it's the first crop that's available to get money from in that part of the world. So there's a possibility of that being the case. And even U.S. Being slightly up and trying to get some dollars into your farming operation or in the southern half of the U.S. So overall, though, this market's kind of waddling along here, waiting to see what's going to happen with the USDA's numbers on September 12th. It's good. I still sense there's going to be a decline in the U.S. yields. I don't know how significant it's going to be, and also the fact that the USDA still has a lot more things they need to measure before we can really get a great feel at what the yields might be. There's been some good, and there's also been some so-so yields being reported from other private people here in the last few days in the Eastern Corn Belt. We'll just have to see how all this thing gets together. But but next week we'll have the trade expectations, and I'll have my number knocked down probably a little bit better going into this. September 12th report. But we're kind of taking a weekend siesta here.
All right. We'll check the markets and talk next week.
Sounds like a great plan. Enjoy your weekend.
Bye.